This is my real question. Were we all wrong? A lot of people were saying ho-hum about this phone, and yet it seems to be much bigger than we thought.
There were definitely a lot of people that were wrong. The expectation was that the decline in iPhone sales was going to continue into the September and the December quarter. Apple said they're not going to release any information about pre-orders. Not that they do this all the time, but they weren't. So it was a big surprise when operators said that pre-orders were in fact up. So I think there is a surprise. Now, as far as the lines today.
Yeah, what was the analyst here like? You were at the Apple store here in New York.
Yeah, I mean, look, the lines were short, but there's analysts that go out there and count people in line. There's not a lot of correlation. Lines were short for the 5S, and it was a massive success for Apple. The iPhone 6 line was very long. Remember, China in many of these launches didn't get it as fast, or the phone didn't launch as soon. So there was a lot of people in line taking those phones, putting them into a van on Fifth Avenue, or shipping them over to China.
Seeing a live shot right now of Fifth Avenue, I think.
Probably not a big line in that from where I was at the time. So, I mean, it went around the block before, it didn't now, but I don't think people should look at lines today, even though it's always interesting to watch and say there's any correlation to how many sales. So we think they return to growth into the December quarter.
I'm told it's actually taped earlier. I don't want to mislead our viewers here. That was taped earlier.
Well, I can tell you that there was not a long line there.
So when are we going to have a sense, Walter, of whether this is going to turn around, which has been two quarters straight of down iPhone sales for Apple?
I mean, getting that info from the U.S. operators was nice, but getting more feedback from some of the other global operators about how sales are going for them, up or down. China's obviously going to be a huge market, determining whether the company can return to growth. Other people will get inputs out of the suppliers to see whether they're getting more orders and less orders. So as the weeks progress here, we'll get a better sense. But our view is, based on what the U.S. operators say, which they're 25% or so of the launch quarter, that's a very positive data point. Gives us more confidence that they can actually return to some small level of growth in the December quarter.
So take us into the stock. As I say, you have a buy rating on it, $133 price tag. I'm told that Apple is on track now for the biggest weekly gain in 5 years, since 2011 in the stock price. Is that what you're expecting?
I mean, there was, again, a lot of concern about whether they could return to growth. So this was a very positive data point that there's hope there. And valuation, we've been talking about valuation for a long time now, but stocks are going to stay at a low valuation if investors think they're in declining growth and there's risk of margin contraction. So you're buying time. Like, if you can show some small growth, remember, Apple spends a lot of money in R&D. As a percentage of revenue, it's been ramping the last couple of years. In absolute terms, it's a lot of money. People speculate about cars and living rooms and, God knows what else. If we can give some growth, valuation resets, we have a re-rating in the market right now, and you're getting a free look on some of the other new products that they might be able to develop.
So take us into how the market develops. Maybe it's not enough that they do well, but their opposition doesn't do so well. Samsung is having a really tough time now with the Galaxy 7, the recall. Is that helping Apple's situation?
It definitely doesn't hurt. I think it takes some of the focus off some of the criticisms maybe of this phone, given the the dramatic problems that Samsung is happening right now. I'm not sure if someone really wants a Samsung product that alone is going to shift a major amount of share over to Apple. People have kind of chosen their systems already. There was some Apple market share gains, which I think will continue. Remember, Apple is a product that's focused on the high end of the market. The vast majority of the world is not buying Apple products. They're buying Android products because they just can't afford Apple, even on a used basis.
So, Walter, take us into the future now, into 2017. There's supposed to be a big product launch from Apple in 2017. They told us that's the year to look for. 10th anniversary, right?
Well, I'm not sure they've told us. Maybe some pundits have told us to look forward to that.
But is it enough for them to come out with a much improved iPhone, or do they need to go beyond the iPhone and get another arrow in their quiver?
I mean, you never want to count them out. But the iPhone 6 2 years ago was a very unique situation. There was a lot of pent-up demand for larger size products, that Apple was stuck with the smaller screens, and they went to larger. There was a massive push through, which resulted in 30% growth. This is a massive company selling 50 million phones in a regular quarter, 70, 80 million phones in a big quarter. To expect them to launch a product that's going to return them to 30% growth, I just don't think that's within the realm of possibility at this point. Again, never say never.
Right.
We'll see what the phone looks like, but a lot of people have phones. It's just a matter of how quickly they're going to be upgrading those.
But that suggests there has to be another product. I mean, the iPhone came along after the iPad. right? And the question is, what could that be? Is it a wearable?
Right, so you're talking about growth in general for Apple. So
Right.
I think some of the frustration for investors is you're generating a lot of this free cash flow. You're using it for share repurchase, which is helping with earnings growth, as opposed to maybe making acquisitions to get into other areas. You're investing in R&D. R&D is going up, and all we've seen is a watch. Now look, the watch generated billions of revenue. It does help with the growth rate, but there's the expectation, if not now hope, that some other product can deliver growth. Now, nothing is going to be as big as the phone, most people would believe. However, you don't need something as big as the phone to provide that extra couple hundred basis points, several percentage points of growth that if Apple is perceived as, at least as not declining, low growth, if you can get us to mid-single digit growth, 10% growth, that has very different implications for the value of the stock. And that is the ultimate hope as far as some of these R&D projects they're working on.